Good, happy Sunday morning, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. Let's begin. First up, high tide flooding leaves behind mess in coastal communities. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9.
If you cannot support the electricity, the internet, the water, the whatever needs that new business needs, then they're not going to come to New Hampshire.
Well, Charisse, the ocean once again starting to rise here behind us as we approach another high tide right around 12:30 tomorrow morning. It's not expected to be as severe as it has been, but if you follow me along the seawall here, you'll see parts of it was just knocked right over from this weekend storm. The water sending gravel into the parking lot and a lot of debris. Mother Nature sure causing some problems up here this weekend. Mother Nature's strength on full display as a strong nor'easter slammed into the New Hampshire seacoast.
The wind, the waves, the flooding, it's crazy. Came out actually originally to go surfing, and looks like that's not going to happen today.
The astronomical high tide pushed the Atlantic Ocean over the seawall and into the streets, causing flooding in many neighborhoods.
The banging last night from the wind and you don't really know what was floating by on the street.
Come Saturday night, some roads still remained underwater and damage still lingered.
It was a little nerve-wracking.
Chris Valangis's Hampton Beach Oasis sits near the marsh. He's owned the place since 2014, but this is his first time experiencing winter on the seacoast.
It was scary seeing the water come in, but once I realized, when high tide, check the times in the tide charts, and once I knew it was at its maximum, and it wasn't as high as I had expected, then it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Chris says this weekend's storm beat out the one in January when it came to strong winds, but the flooding wasn't as bad this time around.
By about 8 inches higher. It got to almost maybe an inch below my doorstep, where this one hit maybe just the first step.
Despite the flooding, high winds, and headaches that can come with the winter season, Chris says he has no plans to move.
Yeah, as long as you can put up with the chances of it happening. But when the summer comes, right there.
It's a good payoff.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go, some positive thinking on his end. Now, further north up in Rye, parts of Ocean Boulevard will be shut down overnight. Something to keep in mind. Now, as for Hampton, they're supposed to hold their half marathon and 5K tomorrow. Some wondered if it would even happen because of some of the damage, but according to organizers, they posted on their website that the show will go on and the race will happen. We're live here along the seacoast tonight. I'm Tim Callery, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. State of emergency declared as power remains out for hundreds of thousands in Massachusetts. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker declared a state of emergency Saturday as much of the state deals with the impact of a nor'easter that caused major flooding and damage across the region. Declaring a state of emergency will allow the deployment of federal and interest resources to provide assistance throughout the recovery process. There is no statewide travel ban. Thousands of people across Massachusetts woke up without power early Saturday as a massive nor'easter continued to crunch off the coast of southern New England, creating catastrophic dangerous seas and waves pounding the coastline in the Commonwealth. At least a dozen communities across southern Massachusetts reported nearly every home without power, and public officials warned it could be days before utility crews could address the damage created by the destructive storm. As of 6:17 p.m. Saturday, over 300,000 customers were without power, according to statistics provided by the Massachusetts Emergency Management Office. High tide occurred around noon for coastal areas, and intense waves pounded the shores. Along the South Shore, waves were so intense that they went as high as the homes sited on the shore. On Cape Cod, the boardwalk of the beach in Orleans was damaged as a result of the tide. The long-duration nor'easter pounded the coast with hurricane-force winds and sideways rain and snow, flooding streets, grounded flights, stopping trains, and leaving at least 5 people dead from fallen trees or branches. In Boston Harbor, the Friday morning high tide crested around 14.67 inches, about 6 inches short of the record set during the storm on January 4th. A second high tide Friday night did not produce the record-setting flooding that was feared. Even before Friday night's high tide, the storm had brought much of eastern Massachusetts to a halt. The Friday morning high tide swept floodwaters into areas that hadn't been underwater for decades. Floodwaters in Quincy submerged cars, and police rescued people trapped in their vehicles. High waves battered nearby Scituate, making roads impassable and turning parking lots into small ponds. About 150 people in Quincy were rescued, most of them from High Neck, Grimtown, and the area around Post Island Road, where front-ended loaders and boats were brought in to bring people out of flood homes and cars. Around 12:15 p.m. Friday, New Bedford police captain and Dartmouth firefighter saved a man whose car was sinking in Clark's Cove off Rodney French Boulevard. Like the January 4th storm, this one is a bomb cycle, meaning that the pressure dropped at least 14 millibars in 24 hours. The storm killed at least 6 people, including a 77-year-old woman struck by a branch outside her home near Baltimore. Fallen trees also killed a man and 6-year-old in different parts of Virginia, an 11-year-old boy in New York State, and a man in Newport, Rhode Island. The Plymouth County District Attorney's Office said a man crushed by a tree in Platten was pronounced dead at the scene. For second day, high tide pounds coast in Maine. Let's take a listen to the video from WMTW News 8 Maine.
What, these both support the immune system?
Too many choices? Well, along with digestive health, Florastor provides an extra layer of immune support.
Really?
Unlike many other probiotics, Florastor stimulates the production of IgA.
IgA?
Oh, IgA is a protein that promotes health and defense against infection.
All right. I'll try it.
Woo! See you later, ladies. Let's go. Be biotic. with Floristore.
So, where do you live, sir? Portland!
Trying not to get doused by the angry Atlantic. Just before high tide at the end of Fairlawn Avenue in Camp Ellis, all eyes were on these two houses teetering on the verge of collapse. The shingle home, owned by a man from Canada, rented out weekly in the summer. Dan Downey has spent the last several summers here.
You think last summer you're sitting out there with a beer and sitting in a chaise lounge and life was good? Kind of sad. It's very sad, and it's amazing the strength and the power that the water has.
It's worse today than it was yesterday. The waves are stronger.
T.J. Jewett's family has lived in this neighborhood since the 1960s. If the house in front of his is swallowed up, his home will be waterfront, and not in a good way.
You spend your life watching news stories on television about people that have had their homes destroyed by floods, hurricanes, wildfires, and so forth, and it doesn't seem quite real. Then all of a sudden you find yourself in that situation, and it's like being in the middle of a nightmare.
The wrath of Mother Nature all along the coast from Higgins Beach in Scarborough, where the surf was furious, and this was 90 minutes before high tide, not a surfer in sight. Here's a view of the ocean swells from Prout's Neck, with the high-rise condominiums along Pine Point and Old Orchard Beach in the background. But it was Camp Ellis that drew the crowds today, and T.J. Jewett wondering about the ever-changing landscape.
In front of these houses was a road, Surf Street. In front of Surf Street was 30 feet of dunes. In front of that was 30 feet of beach. That's all completely been wiped out.
All right, we're back live along Portland Pier tonight. The manager of Jay's Oyster Bar telling me that they actually are packed right now. They might have to close, though, because high tide hitting again 24 minutes after midnight. And she says what happens is the water comes up the ramp, blocking the entrance to the restaurant. But she says those sandbags do work. We're live in Portland. Jim Keithley, WMTW News 8.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Florida lawmakers debate school safety bill in rare session. Let's take a listen to the video from ABC News.
Going back to my normal ways at school is not possible. Going back to our normal ways at school for anybody that's ever been through this will never be the same way again.
David Hogg's morning routine is about the only thing that will be routine for him today.
An emotional tribute to the victims of the shooting, members of the Never Again movement putting together a candlelight vigil outside of the Florida House.
He's a core member of that student-led Never Again movement.
We do have a major gun violence problem in this country. We need a multifaceted approach. This is a time for our country to take a look in the mirror and realize there's a serious issue here. Clearly, the older generation have failed us.
His goal? To make sure a massacre like the one that happened at his school 2 weeks ago never happens again. But this morning, the 17-year-old is laser-focused on just getting to school.
By no stretch a typical day when you have to take your kids back to school after a shooting.
In a few hours, David and his freshman sister Lauren will confront a new reality.
Lauren keeps saying she doesn't want to do this, and I'm like, we got to get through this. We don't have a choice. Okay, we ready to do this? We're all going to school. I'm going to lock the back door. Go.
Okay. I can't lock the back door.
I'm like scared, but also I'm kind of happy because I'm going to get to see some of my friends that I haven't seen in a while.
It also kind of sucks because normally when we're on our way to school, when I turn in, I see Coach Weiss. He's not there today, and he won't be any other.
Coach Weiss used to wave and smile at literally every single person that walked in. So that's going to be tough for a lot of people.
Tough doesn't even begin to describe it for senior Sam Zeif and his younger brother Matthew. They both were in the building where the shooting took place and barely managed to escape.
I have no idea what it's about to be like when we walk in. Because we can't go back to normal.
Last week,